Someone's pointing my way and saying we're live. Hey everybody, how you doing? It is Ken Hadrick, Dean of the Pie Academy, and I want to welcome you to this special free class that we're doing this week, first of the new year. So welcome to everybody, whether you're one of our regulars or we haven't met before, or you're new at the Pie Academy, or you've been with us for 10 years. Welcome, welcome. We have a great program. Oh, interrupted by the bell. This is very good timing. I had a feeling it was going to go off now. Let me turn that off. And what we're going to do is we'll switch to the overhead camera. You can take a look at this while I'm telling you a little bit about what we're going to do today. Here, you got the overhead on, sweetie? Okay. How's that look? Good shot? Yeah. Okay. This is one of the two galettes that we're making today. And this one, you can't see it, but down in here you can see the skin. We have eggplant, and on top we have pepperoni and some sauteed onions in there, some cheeses on the bottom. I like to put the cheeses on the bottom of these things because it sort of moisture proofs the bottom pastry. But this came out very nice, probably in maybe a couple of minutes too long. You can tell it got a little bit brown, but this is one of two that we're going to do today. So we're going to take this, we're going to work backwards from here. I'm going to assemble two of them and show you all the ropes so you can make these at home. Now, just to be clear, this is half of the dough recipe that I sent you. I sent you a dough recipe, and I told you for that recipe, that's like our basic all butter pie crust. And I mentioned that you're going to need a couple of things of note, that you should use a little bit extra flour, 1 3/4 cups, and that you're going to use half of the dough to make each one of these galettes. And the wonderful thing about this is you can make up the dough, you're going to divide it in half, and you'll have two pieces, and each of those pieces make a galette of this size. I rolled this to about an 11-inch circle and put the filling in the center and then filled up the edges. You're going to see how we do all that in just a minute. So, by the way, let me introduce my wife, Bev. You can't see her. She's a little camera shy. But anytime I say the word sweetie, I'm not flirting with you. I'm flirting with her and giving her some directions about which camera we should be using. We have 3 cameras here. We have this overhead one. We have one up close. I'll give you a quick look at that one. Are we on that front one, sweetie? So this way you can get a look at things from the front, and that's always a nice view. And then we have that camera angle that we opened up with, the one where you're sort of looking at me. That's the one people get tired of very quickly. Anyway, so let's get started. I think the class is going to go about 30 or 40 minutes. I'm usually pretty terrible about estimating exactly how much time it's going to take, but I've taken pains to streamline things a little bit. So let's dive in. The first recipe I want you to pull up is the roasted eggplant and pepperoni galette. That's the one we're going to make first. And I'll get mine in front of me too here. We have anybody out there in the audience that you want to tell me about real quick? A couple of names? Anybody? Sound like anybody new that we haven't had here before?
Well, let's see here. We have Marguerite in Connecticut. They're all telling us the snow and the degrees, the temperature there.
Oh yeah, everybody's getting snow. Isn't that great? Yeah. What was that name? Marguerite, you said?
Marguerite.
Oh, very good. Marguerite, welcome from Connecticut.
Yes, Connecticut, sorry. And Margie in California.
Hi, Margie in California. How you doing today?
Mark and Jossie in New Hampshire.
Oh, we know Mark and Jossie in New Hampshire, all old friends.
Jane in Minnesota.
Hey, Jane in Minnesota. How are you?
Kathy in sunny Florida.
Great. Hi, Kathy.
We're jealous.
Yeah, we're jealous, Bev says. Okay, well, that's great. I'll check in with you later maybe on some more names, but I want to get this rolling. Now, this is half of the dough. Like I said, this is that dough recipe I sent you. It's the scaled up version of the dough. And I divided the recipe in half, and this is about what half looks like. And I'm going to roll that out. And what I'm shooting for is an 11-inch circle. This dough, as you probably know, it's a good thing to refrigerate your dough before you roll it out. That helps make it more flaky, your finished product more flaky. However, it's always a good idea to take it out of the fridge a few minutes before you start rolling it. I forgot to take this out, but that's okay. This, by the way, if you're not familiar with our Pie Academy rolling pins, these are very popular. We sell a lot of these. We sold a dozen or more over the holiday season. And it's a French style pin. You can tell it's fatter in the middle than it is. The ends are tapered. But one of the things it does, and you can see me doing this, it gives you the ability to press down quite hard on the dough, which is nice when the dough is cold like this. So give it a little bit more flour. This is another very popular item that it seems like everybody in the Pie Academy wants one of these or has one of these. Little flour shaker. By the way, I hope you take a look, if you haven't had a chance yet and you're in the market for some new tools, I sent you a couple of things that might be of interest. The first thing is all those links on your link page, and the second thing is there's a video on that link page. And it has lots of information about the tools that I use and people seem to really like. People who come to our classes are always crowing about. Let's just see what we have. I don't think we're quite at 11 yet, but we're getting close. I think this is probably about 10. Yeah, it's like 10, 10 and a half. We're going to go just a little bit bigger. And see how nice this smaller pin too, it enables you to roll a nice round circle, I find. Sometimes a big pin is just too much for a smaller piece of dough like this. Okay, so there's a lot of flour here, so let's get rid of some of this.
And you have your marks on your pin as well.
Yeah, Bev was mentioning that we have some hash marks here on the pin. This is typically, if I'm doing pot pies, these first two are normally how wide I make the dough. And these other two, this is usually this is 13 inches from here to here. 12 and a half, 13 inches is about that size I roll the dough when I'm doing a full size like deep dish pie. Let me put this aside. And okay, so let's get started here with our layering our ingredients in. I have to bring up my next page. Okay. Grabbing some cheese from the fridge here. So what I'm going to do first is we're up on step 5 now. That's the second page of your recipe. So I'm going to spread the grated mozzarella cheese. And what I want to do, what I want you to do, and what I do, is imagine more or less like a 7.5 inch circle in the middle of this, because all of this dough here we're going to fold up and over the filling. Okay, and we put the cheese down first. It's kind of like if you've ever made deep dish, Chicago deep dish pizza, you'll see that all the time. They put the cheese in first and then a lot of sauce, and that protects the crust from getting too damp. We do the same thing here. We're putting the cheese down first. So you can see from my ruler here, I've got about a 7.5 inch circle of the cheese in there. Might as well add a little more. And next what I'm going to do is I'm going to put down about 2 to 3 tablespoons of pizza sauce. And as I mentioned in the recipe, it's nice, instead of just like a regular pasta sauce, a pizza sauce packs a little bit more tomato flavor, and that's why I like it on here. So that's about 2 to 3 tablespoons. So there's that. Now, next, we're going to put some eggplant. So I've got some eggplant here, and I've got to make sure I've got the right order going here. And notice these, you'll notice my baked or roasted eggplant slices here. One thing I do when I roast eggplant slices, and for any number of things, I like to peel the side of the eggplant. I like to peel the skin on the eggplant in 3 or 4 places, because you know how it is when you take a bite of, say this was on your pizza, you took a bite of it and the skin tends to bring everything, the entire piece, and into your mouth. And this way, if you've got these little gaps here, that's less likely to happen. It's kind of a minor thing, but that's what I do. Now, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. I'm not sure how many I'll be able to get to, but if you have any, put them in the comment section, and Bev will let me know, and I'll try to talk and work at the same time. Okay, so I got the eggplant slices on there. Now I'm going to put a little more sauce on here. Is anybody here to answer me this? If you're so inclined, do any of you typically make savory galettes? I'd be curious to hear if you do, what type of galettes you like to make. We're not doing one today, but one thing I like to put on my savory galettes is greens. I like to put like either cooked collards or cooked kale, something like that. Those things are really good on a galette. Okay, so we've got a little pizza sauce on our eggplant, and now we're going to put some onions on there. Some sauteed onions, just to give it a nice depth of flavor. So I sauteed up a couple of really big onions earlier. Now, sweetie, if we get any questions, just let me know. And finally, let's put some pepperoni on there. And with the pepperoni, I like to just tuck it here and there, and underneath the onions, and sometimes underneath the eggplant slices. And it's just kind of nice to tuck them rather than just drop them right on top. I'll put another one there. You can put on as much as you like. And also, as I mentioned in the recipe, this is very nice to use sausage on here too, if you like sausage. I happen to. Okay. So, sweetie, any galette makers out there? No? Okay.
They will after this.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get this guy into the pan. So here's what we do next. Let me see if you typically don't need something like this, but it's a good way to start if you need to. So what we're going to do is we're going to lift the edge. Did you have a question, sweetie? I saw you raise your hand. Okay.
Yes. Kathy wants to know if you can spread the cheese more towards the edge so that it would result in somewhat of a stuffed crust. Would the dough still fold over and hold as well?
Well, let me show Kathy. That was Kathy. Let me show you what we do, Kathy, and maybe this will help answer your question. One thing you could do, I suppose, I've got a little more cheese here, is go around like this with it, and that would work. You could do that just to sort of beef up the cheese along the edge.
But she wants it like a stuffed.
Well, I'm not quite sure what you do to. You could just put more on here. I guess that would work too, but I've never tried that. So what I would do is just experiment with it and see how that works for you.
Oh, sorry.
So what we're going to do is we're going to lift the edge like that, and what happens is as you go around, you lift a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. You do this in short sections, and the way I put it in the recipe, the dough sort of self-pleats as you work your way around. Okay, and then you do like your final one there. And that's cute little unit is what you end up with. So that's what it looks like before it's baked. And this is what it looks like after it's baked. So in a minute we'll cut into that one. So how do we get this into the pan? Well, you could have taken the pastry after you rolled it out and lay it directly in your pan, your baking sheet. We're not going to do that. What we're going to do, I almost always roll things out on parchment. So what I'll do is I'll set that aside, grab my scissors, and what I'm going to do is just cut it like so. These are big sheets. You may not have access to these big sheets, although you can order them on Amazon. They're 16 by 24. I usually buy them by the 1,000 at Web Restaurant Store, or it's called Webstaurant Store. But you can get 100 sheets at a time at Amazon as well. So I lift that right onto the baking sheet, like so. Makes it easy to handle. Now there's one last thing we have to do to it, and that is put on a little bit of glaze. And if we have a little excess flour here and there, we'll get rid of that. And this is simply one beaten egg. Sometimes I'll put a drop or two of water in there, but I like a nice rich glaze on this, something that looks pretty dark. So what I'm going to do is put this glaze all the way around, and I'm going to lift up the pleats here and get it under there, because when this thing bakes, it tends to spread a little bit, and if you don't have glaze inside the pleats there, sometimes it looks a little bland compared to the nice glazed part.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, we have a question.
Mark wants to know, can the galette be frozen before and or after baking?
Well, Mark, you know me when it comes to freezing. I like to freeze some things, but I can tell you that the honest to God truth is I've never frozen one of these prior or after. We seem to...
They're gone before.
Yeah, they're gone. And remember, this is really for two. And, but if there was, I tell you what, if there was one of you in the household, I wouldn't feel the least bit bad about freezing it after it was baked. I think that would be wonderful. Haven't tried it either way, but my inclination would be after it was baked. So let's compare these two side by side. Now, I don't put them on there because Bev prefers without, but I like to put sometimes little toasted sesame seeds on the outside. That's kind of a nice look too. So let's do this. And so that will be going in the oven in just a moment. Let me grab another, well, let me just grab this. So you can see what it looks like after it, as it bakes. Sometimes you'll get the pastry. I don't know if you can see it from that angle. Maybe the front camera, sweetie. The filling tends to settle a little bit, which leaves the crust a little bit high along the edges. But since I have this right here anyway, I'm going to put this one aside. So that's all there is to it. If you have any questions about that, let me know. So we might as well cut this one since we have it right here.
Bobby wants to know how thick was the egg wash on the pastry area.
It wasn't thick, Bobby. It was fairly sparing, and I try not to let it leak all over the place onto the parchment or the baking sheet because it tends to darken on there. So what I'm going to do, this is not the best knife. Let me get a better knife. So again, this is supposed to be a serving for 2. Now half of this would be a serving for 1, and it would be a good size serving. Mm-hmm. But I want to do this because I want you to try to get a look inside. Are we on front or upper camera, sweetie?
We're on front.
Okay, so that's kind of what we're dealing with here. And you can see look at the flakes in that pastry. The flakes are beautiful. You can see the flakiness of that skin. Look at those beautiful flakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So that is, and let's show you the bottom crust.
Mm-hmm.
A little dark, but it's beautiful. Beautiful. So that's all there is to it, really. Pretty simple to throw one of those together once you have the pastry. And like I said in the recipe, so you would mix up the dough, and then you would use half the day you mix it up, and then put the other half, wrap it up well, and you put it in the freezer, and then when you're ready to use it, whatever day, take it out and put it in either put it in the fridge, move it from the freezer to the fridge the day before you want to use it, or simply take it out of the freezer and put it on the kitchen counter for a couple of hours, and it should probably be thawed enough by then to use it. So if that's like the same day thaw treatment, okay?
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, we have a question.
Let's see here. Ever add whole wheat flour to the dough?
Ever add?
Whole wheat flour.
Oh, absolutely. That's whole wheat flour is. I mean, you're preaching to the choir here and speaking my love language. I love whole grain flours, and in the book Pie Academy, I have a number of them. I have them in all of my pastry books. Excuse me, pie and pastry books. So yes, absolutely. If you wanted some rough proportions to begin with, you were playing with this recipe, I'd use about 1/3 whole wheat flour to start with, and then play with it from there. But if you're looking for a dedicated whole wheat flour or whole wheat pastry recipe, check out my books because I have quite a few of them scattered around the books. Any other questions, sweetie?
Let's see here. Beautiful dough.
It is. It's a beautiful dough.
Looks yummy. Jane says she hasn't had her lunch yet.
Oh, Jane's in trouble. She hasn't had her lunch yet. One thing I was going to say now, I'm not actually going to make the dough today, but what I did in the videos, I gave you a video that you can look at, and I did another free class on making pie pastry, food processor, all butter food processor pie pastry. And I included that link. It's near the top of the links on the link page, and you can click on that and it'll take you to that YouTube video, okay? So if you're interested, it's about an hour long, and maybe a bit long-winded in some points, but you can scrub through it and skip the parts that where I'm boring you, and go to the parts that you're interested in. Okay, so let's make the other one. I'm going to get the other recipe up here. This is our tomato, onion, and pesto galette. Now this one's really good too. It's got a couple of interesting things about it. One is the mustard. We have a sort of a running joke at the Pie Academy that if it doesn't have Dijon mustard in it, it's not a Ken Hedrick recipe. So this one has Dijon mustard in it, but it's amazing what a nice harmony you get between the pesto, the tomatoes, and the mustard. They just work beautifully together. So let's dive into that one, okay? It's also got those Campari tomatoes that I really, really like. I'm going to show you some of those in a minute. We'll be working with those. And I like these. There seem to be the ones, especially in the winter market, that are reliably good. They actually taste like tomatoes, which is kind of amazing for a winter tomato. So here's the other half of that dough. And I don't know if you can notice this, but this half came from a batch of dough that I made yesterday. Now, I don't know if you can actually tell it in this light, but it's a little bit, it has a slightly different tone to the dough. And it's just a little bit darker than the other one. The other one is a little bit lighter in color. And there's just something about dough that if it sits overnight in the fridge, and then for subsequent days, if it sits two days in the fridge, it starts to develop a bit of a shade to it. So just be aware of that. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just some sort of oxidation process that begins to take place. Now, I hope you find these ideas useful. I mean, I thought, you know, normally if I would do a class on galettes, I would typically make full-size galettes, you know, big ones that were for 6 or even 8 people. But, you know, there's not, in many households, there's not 6 or 8 people. And I thought that by dividing this dough up, cutting it in half, and making two, you know, small sections of galette with it, that many people in the Pie Academy would find that more useful than a big recipe. So that's what we did. Any other questions, sweetie, coming in?
No, but one says that this is sparking ideas for soup and galette lunches or dinners.
Soup and galette lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah. When I think of galette, one thing I think of that would, because it's a fairly rich thing, you know, you might have a little meat in there, you have the cheese, you know, got the pastry, you know, it sort of has a rich mouthfeel. So I would stick with a brothy soup, you know, nothing too rich. Another thing I like to do with galettes is a salad, just a nice lean salad. That works very well too. Okay, I think we're probably at about 11 inches, so let's take a quick measure.
Okay, Joseph has a question. You roll off center. Is there a reason for that?
Well, there's a little bit of a reason, and who was that? Who asked that?
Joseph.
Joseph. One of the reasons, Joseph, is if I went straight forward like this, you'd get a good shot of my head like that. So I have to go a little bit off center because the overhead camera is sort of lined up with the top of my head if I'm not careful, and that's really the main reason. So normally I would just go like that. When I roll, it's usually the 10, 12, and 2 o'clock positions that I roll into. Now, if your dough is nice and firm like this, you can usually, I don't like to leave too much excess flour on it, so I'll do this, flip it over, nice and easy to flip over. And turn it back. Okay, so let's put this one together. And sweetie, you'll keep me honest and help me with the layering so I don't have to keep looking at the recipe.
Alrighty.
All right, so first thing we're going to do is put some mustard on it, right? That's we're about midway through step 3. And like I said, it's some people think it's a little unusual, but anybody who after the fact has had mustard with their tomatoes and the pesto, they say, wow, that really, really tastes good together. So what's after our mustard there? We're going to put, okay, how about we put some mozzarella cheese on top of it, okay?
Okay, we have a request for consider doing a video class on pasties.
On what?
Pasties.
Pasties. Oh, one of my favorite things. I love pasties. Are you who asked that? And do you happen to be from Michigan or someplace where pasties are king?
I think it's Sylvia.
Sylvia?
Herbal Safari with Sylvia Burgess.
Okay. All right. Sylvia, I'm curious where you're from. Okay, so we've got our Dijon mustard on there. And see, I'm just running my fingers under there. Nothing is, just to kind of show you that my dough is not sticking. I floured it enough. The dough is firm enough, so it's not sticking. So now what we'll do is we'll put some dollops of pesto on there, okay?
Now, Brian wants to know, are you using a different brush for the flour and the wash?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I like to keep several pastry brushes nearby. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Good question. And just a few dollops here and there. So what's next, sweetie? What are we going to put on here? The reason I'm hedging about this, when I make these things, there's usually, I never layer them the same way twice, it seems like. So I think what we're going to do now is put a little cornmeal on there. Now cornmeal is just a little trick of mine to absorb the moisture that's going to be coming down from the tomatoes. So we'll put that on next. I've got, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you forgot the cornmeal.
Oh, it's Sylvia.
Oh, it's our Sylvia. From the podcast this week. Oh, very good. Nice to have you, Sylvia.
Oh, yes.
Oh, very good. Okay, now we're going to get our tomatoes on there, all right? So we've got, let's go down through the layers. We've got our mustard, our grated cheese, our pesto, and our cornmeal. And now we're going to put our tomatoes on here. And what I'm going to do is grab a cutting board. Here's my tomatoes. These are the Campari. You've seen these in your grocery store. I was fortunate. They were on sale this week. But they're often, when you see them in the market, they often still attach to these little vine sections. So I think that helps. I actually, in their literature, I think it said that even when they pluck them off the vine, or put them in here on the vine, that they'll continue to ripen. Well, that sounded a little funny, but I guess it's true. Now, these Campari tomatoes come in different sizes. So when I say about 4 Campari tomatoes, or about 3 or 4, whatever. If they're real big, you may need less. If they're real small, you may need more. So I know this is overkill for a tomato knife, but I went to plug in my thing this morning, my knife sharpener this morning, and there was a loud pop, and it fried itself. The cord did, where it goes into the machine, and Bev was like, well, that shouldn't happen. I had to tell her that I've had that about 30 years, and it finally bit the dust. So anyway, we'll be getting a new knife sharpener. Meanwhile, we're using this brand new big knife that one of my kids gave me for Christmas. This is actually a bread knife. So
Okay,
let's, okay, what?
Peggy wants to know, back to the first recipe, what would be the best substitute for eggplant?
The best substitute for eggplant.
Yeah, and Jane suggested zucchini.
Zucchini, yeah. Yeah, they both have a somewhat similar soft texture. That would be good. Yeah. You could also put a layer of cooked greens under there. That would be nice too. I do that a lot. So let's put some tomatoes on here and there.
Now Sharon wants to know if she doesn't have cornmeal, would fine breadcrumbs be a good substitute?
Yeah, nice fine breadcrumbs. That would work fine. Oops. So let's cut some of these into smaller pieces. So what are we going to put on here next, sweetie, after we put on the tomatoes? We're going to put some onions on there? Mm-hmm. Let's do that next. Tomatoes always need a bit of salt and pepper. I don't think I put pepper in the recipe, but let's put a little salt on there. And a little pepper. And get our onions back here. So again, this is just two ideas for an idea that you could spin in so many different directions. And I hope you do. I hope you play around with this concept because it's very cook friendly, very not complicated. It's easy to do. And as different vegetables come along in the gardening year and the produce year, it has so many. There's so many different ways you can spin it. Okay, so let's fold this one up.
You can even put olives.
Olives, yes. And this one in particular, olives would be very good in here. Mm-hmm. So notice it is starting to pleat. And there you go. Sometimes you just have to push on it a little bit to get it to sit down for you. And get my little brush back. Yeah, I like that question. I forget who asked that question about the, and you got to watch, sometimes you get a loose brush coming. Better to catch it before one of your guests does. Yeah, I like that question about the pastry brushes. I should have mentioned that, or think to mention it more often, because you definitely don't want to use the same pastry brush. Imagine sticking that into a bunch of flour right now. It would just make a mess. It would get all funky. So these, we're having the one that I cut open earlier, well, Bev and I are going to have for lunch. And these we'll probably have for dinner today and tomorrow, and maybe the next day.
Yeah, it's too cold to go out.
Yeah, it's too cold to go out anyways, Bev says. And it is, even here in what should be sunny and warm Wilmington, North Carolina, is, what was it, last night in the 20s?
Yeah.
Too cold. Too cold. I spent too many years in New Hampshire to have cold days like this. And that's all there is to it. And again, that one goes on to a baking sheet, the same way that we did the other one. Grab grab a baking sheet. Now, typically, the usual way to buy these pieces of parchment, by the way, is this size. They call them half-sheet pans. This is known as a half-sheet, and that's typically the way they're sold. So you won't have any problem finding those. And it's probably, for most people, probably the most useful size to keep around. Okay? So that's, we're nearing the end of our, I think I did pretty well estimating how much time we're going to be here. So here's, what, do you want me to put this one back over there, or the baked one? Or all of them?
Or all of them.
All of them. Okay, so there you have it. And I'll put half of this one back. So there you have it. Beautiful little galettes that'll serve 2 people. If there's one of you, cut it in half, have the other half, you know. Well, hell, if you want, I shouldn't be telling you how much to eat. If you want to eat the whole thing in one sitting, that's fine. It doesn't matter at all. But I'm thinking typically, I mean, Bev and I have been eating these the last few days. Believe me, half of this is plenty, usually.
Yes, with a salad or soup.
Yeah, and again, like with salad or soup, they're very, very, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's like eating the flakiest. I love flaky and crusty and savory together. I mean, it's just, to me, it's just the best. And these little galettes are just a very, very easy way to indulge that little love of mine. Anyway, let me step back here and take any questions that anybody has.
Well, Brian wants to know, when you moved to North Carolina, he thought you lived in New England.
Oh, I did. I did live in New England for many, many years, 20 years, but I left there quite a while ago now. I don't know, what year?
2000.
Yeah, around 2000. So I still love it up there. I have my 2 daughters and 4 grandchildren live up there, and they're just beautiful. I love going up and seeing them. So there's things I miss about New England. Cold weather is not, and snow is not one of them. So anyway, that's our program for today. I hope you enjoyed watching me make these. I hope I inspired you, and I hope you got some good ideas out of this. This is the sort of thing we're going to be doing in the course that starts this weekend, the Cooking for 2 course. So if you haven't seen any of the information about that, I put the green link at the bottom of your link list. If you want to go into that and see what we're going to be doing, there's actually a calendar in there of the different dishes that we're going to be making. We're not going to be doing any pie making or pastry making. That it's more you know, meals you can get fairly quickly on the table and to get you through the winter, because I know how it is in the winter. Sometimes you feel uninspired, or you just feel all cooped up, and you just need something. And the thing that I usually need to do most is just make something that tastes good. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to spend 7 Sundays in a row making stuff that tastes good. We're going to keep the classes to about an hour, so it's not like it takes up everyone's afternoon. But if it sounds like something you might enjoy, I hope you'll join us. And that's it for today, everybody. Thanks again for coming, and we'll see you next time, whenever that is.